You know, most people say that you should not work in business with your spouse. They say there's lots of problems with that in terms of like relationally and romantically and communication. It just creates unnecessary conflict and it's just a really bad idea. And I get that on one hand, but on the other hand, my wife and I do anyway. And I know another couple, Owen and Theresa, who also work in their family business together. And I sat down with them, and my wife and I both sat down with them to ask them, how is this working for you guys? Like, my wife and I are having this experience over here. Does that align with your experience over there? Is this a good thing? Is there a reason why we should not be working in business with our spouse? And what are the pros and cons of this? And what does this all mean? Because I think biblically, like, God created man and woman and put them in the garden to work together, right? But we don't live our lives that way. We live mostly separated lives in these kind of different domains with the home and the workplace. So today we're going to talk about what's good about this, what's bad about it, what's our experience been like, and talk about how does a vision for our family even kind of bleed over into our workplace in that environment. What does all that look like? I'm excited to dive into that conversation with you guys here today.
Welcome to the Business Family Marriage Podcast with Tim Smoyer. This is his personal podcast where he shares what he's learning about growing a seven-figure business while also raising 7 children and deepening his relationship with his wife at the same time. He shares what he's learning, what's worked, what hasn't, what he's trying next to grow a fruitful business, family, and marriage. For more on that today, here's Tim.
Welcome. It's so good to hang out with you. This show is my personal podcast, just my personal opinions and perspectives on things around life, around marriage, around business, around family, and how those three things especially intersect with each other. The things I'm learning in family and in life and in business, and how that impacts the way I run the other areas of my life. Because I don't really like living life in all these different segments and all these different buckets and all these different like lives where I have this world over here. I kind of like them all to be kind of intertwined, and it's just way less chaotic for me. Right. So that's what this show is all about. And welcome. I really am excited to jump in this conversation. I'm not going to already repeat what I already said in the opening here. So let's just cut to this interview of me talking with Owen and Theresa, my wife and I, talking with them about working in business with your spouse and what impact that has on our marriage and our family and our relationships and even just how we view each other. It's a really good, helpful conversation. Owen, Theresa, good to have you guys here. How are you guys doing today?
Today is awesome.
Yeah, super good. Like, just the setup and getting ready for this was so easy and so fun that I feel ready to talk about everything.
We're in alignment.
We are aligned. We are totally aligned today.
Well, it's good to talk with you guys. We've known each other for a while. I think, Owen, you and I met in 2016. If
we were still at Real SEO, and I was watching your video blogs in Real SEO and like talking with Carla, like trying to get my blogs on Real SEO. And yeah, you were the first expert that I began to follow.
I remember us having our babies still like crawling on the floor and seeing you on our TV screen as Owen was viciously taking notes.
That's right. And that was, I feel like there was a lot of YouTube activity that year. Like there was like maybe presidential debates on YouTube, or there was big YouTube events happening because YouTube was like launching live streaming. So it was really early on in the process. But I remember that TV. I remember having Tim and Daryl like on that TV Saturday mornings. Yeah.
Well, it's been fun to get to know you guys over the years, mostly you, Owen, and then Theresa, meeting you in person for the first time a couple of weeks ago out in social media marketing world. And then my wife is here too.
Hi. And I'm so excited to finally get to see you and talk with you. I've seen you in the background of all the videos, and it's just a pleasure.
Yeah. It's so fun to get to connect with people like in real time now.
Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with you guys, tell us real quick, who are you guys? Tell us about your family, your story, your business. And then I want to talk about working with your spouse in the business.
Yeah, that's good. So what do we do, babe?
Well, we We are consultants for brands, CEOs, coaches, consultants who want to scale their influence. And our big strategy that we use is video. So we really show them how they can leverage platforms like YouTube to get their message out and be able to bring in organic revenue, as well as just really break out of their network if they're on other platforms to reach other people who've never really heard of them and get their message out to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a business that I started years ago when I was fired for the last time. And I promised myself I'd never be fired again. Like, I'm just going to start a company doing what I love to do. And it worked out. Theresa was a teacher at the time. And
I made him get a data desk job against his will. And
kind of.
And then he got fired and we were like, okay.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is like, this is like a square peg, round hole. And so, you were really supporting me and my vision and my dream. And we went from being a videographer, like filming videos, to like coaching people in videos, and to coaching only specific people in videos. And then at a certain point, Theresa was able to quit her job and come home and build the business alongside of me. And I think that is when we truly began to take off from a financial perspective, and getting us together aligned in one purpose, with one mission, like together, was the first team experience I've ever had, right? Like I'm largely that kid, kind of loner, neglected as a kid. So it's a weird story. I never believed in teams. I can do it myself. People to me were unreliable. People to me are the ones they lie to you. They say they love you and they'll ditch you the second they get a chance to. Like that was the upbringing I came from. And so trusting my wife, like that was a whole weird thing for me. But when she came on board, so much began to blossom. And I think it was just like this wonderful experience.
Yeah, I think that, doing it on his own got him to where he was at 2017 was when I quit my job and joined him. But I think that layer of self-growth in relationships specifically, and that whole dynamic is really that layer that was needed to get to where we are now.
Yeah. I was afraid of saying numbers. I gave everything to everybody. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, you're a lawyer. I'm sure I'll use a lawyer someday. I'll do it for free. I'll do it for $500, And then she came in and she's like, I'm going to deliver the price from now on, and it's not just a salesperson, but it's like, I'm going to charge people for the services that you provide. She's the one that put the numbers in front of me and said, look at how much your clients are making. From like looking at their testimonials and looking at some of the screenshots they were sending us. She goes, and then think about what you're charging.
Yeah.
And that was a big revelation. It was way out of proportion. Yeah. And then, so we started to get more mature about it. And that was something she brought in. Like, I was a lot of energy, but she really was the kind of the mastermind behind building like a business foundation underneath us.
Which I find interesting, because my perspective really is that he taught me to be an entrepreneur. Like, I was a teacher. It was very like safe, no matter what you do.
401k, 501(b)(3)B.
You have a good day or a bad day, you get the same paycheck every time, and so he's really taught me a lot too.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed, I was in the same way, Owen, where when clients started telling me like, no, you need to charge more for this, I'm like, really? And then I did it to someone else. I was trying to, there's a game store nearby that rents out board games. Yeah. And they have a whole wall just full of board games. You go in and it was like $3 for 2 weeks to rent a board game. And I was like, oh, well, that's a no brainer. So I got one game. He's like, well, I can't actually, you got to get another one because I'm not allowed to run a charge for less than $5 or I lose money. So you get another one, you get it $6. I'm like, dude, just charge me $5. Like, it's okay.
Games for everyone.
This is like $150 game. It's like, take $5. That's okay. So I get that mentality. So in the business for you guys, we're at right now, is it fair to say that, Owen, you're kind of like the front person, the face, and then Theresa, you're like the behind the scenes person, making sure everything actually works and runs and everything?
Exactly.
Okay. Dana, how would you describe our roles in our business?
I would say that's definitely the way it is. I'm not front and center of the business at all. So, and your face is the business pretty much. So
Our faces, Owen, the money makers.
I can't go wrong.
The money maker face.
And these powerful women behind us, I fulfill the work, and that's something that I really love to do. And that's been I think a huge benefit to our partnership. I've had partners before, or, I've had business partners or some type of collaborator on projects. Like it's never worked out. I never felt like anybody else on the team was really looking for anything more than that paycheck or like that final payout or whatever. And my wife comes in and she's like, no, you're going to stop saying that. No, you're going to stand up straight. You know what I mean? Like there's a maturity that happens when your partner, when your love is looking at you. And that's a dynamic that I think is a competitive advantage to other people in our space. And I think it's a great message to those who see us in general.
Yeah, for Dana and I feel like I've been doing this business myself full time for 9 years now. And then when did you start getting involved? About a year ago?
Yeah, about a year.
And in different roles. And it was kind of more, I was like, you know what? She's legally 50% owner of the business, and she has a lot of skills, and to get into a place where she wanted to get her head out of diapers and meal planning and house cleaning and stuff all the time. And I was like, well, you own a business. So like you could do some of that instead if you wanted. And so she leaned in a couple different roles, and some of them didn't quite fit that well. I mean, until this one, where you're like, I just don't have the capacity. But this role that you're doing now feels like, oh, this is like a perfect fit,
Oh, what role is that?
Yeah.
How would you describe what you do now?
CFO.
Learning
all the finances of everything.
That's great.
That's really good.
So you're doing all like QuickBooks and everything?
I'm learning it. We do have our accountant and her assistant that I'm working with as I'm learning to take over more. So,
but even that is like, maybe just a small part of the CFO job, right? The CFO, I think, is really like looking at where the money's going, future investments, and like strategies. You're kind of pulling it all together, and that was a good fit for Theresa too. Was kind of managing some of the banking, which I grew up with this like tremendous money story problem. You know what I mean? We were always broke. It was always too expensive, and so I was holding on to every single penny and not investing in the business. But to your point, Tim, finding the right fit. I think we went through that too.
I definitely have tried many roles in our business, many roles.
Yeah.
And I want to hear a little bit more about that here in a second. But I think what I feel like you guys are similar to us, which is like what I'm really good at, big picture, vision oriented, like here's where we want to be. And I can see the path clearly to get from point A to point B of where we want to go. And then when it comes to actually executing it, it's like, not so much. Right? Yeah. But then there are other people like Dana who are very much detail oriented and keep track of things. And it's like, I can see here's the destination. And then she's like, okay, I think I can figure out how to get us there. And so having someone who's like a big picture oriented type person like I am, combined with like a detail oriented person, like if we were both detail oriented, we wouldn't go anywhere. And if we were detail oriented, we still wouldn't go anywhere. Like we would just, whatever.
Vision oriented.
We would stay stuck because we see it and we would never go there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
we'd just be dreaming.
So I think having both in our marriage and our family and our business, that combination can work well together. But the thing is, and you guys maybe have heard this too, that most people say like you should never work with your spouse.
Right.
In fact, most people go further, you should never work with a family member.
Right.
But here we are working with our spouse. So I know there's a lot of interesting dynamics that I kind of want to get into here, but how does that work for you guys? Is that a bad idea? Let's start there. Overall, is it a bad idea to work with your spouse? And for people who say that, what would you say to them if they're like, I could never do that?
Well, I would first start with your why. Why? What would be the benefit of working with your spouse? What's that long-term benefit that you're searching for? And if that's worth it, then it's worth it. And it's not going to be necessarily easy, But if you care about that enough, you'll work through those details, and you'll fight it out until you figure out the best, I think, balance so that it's worth working. And, Owen and I have definitely gone through a lot of ups and downs in this, and plenty of times I have said, I don't want to work for you anymore. And he's like, I don't want you to work for me anymore.
I was like, good, because you're fired,
We've had a few of those conversations, but we got through it because in the end we said it, but we really didn't believe. We didn't really want that,
Yeah.
And so after the emotions wear off and you could sit down again, you think, okay, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
How do we get through this?
And is this the right role? Is this the right fit? So I think that we believe that this is God's design for marriage. I believe that Proverbs 31, like a good woman makes investments while she's away from the home, like a good woman, like makes sure that like there's profit in the market, right? Like this is all clearly laid out in tales often told, right? In Holy Scriptures, at the beginning of time, it's like a husband and a wife work together. They build a family together. It is only a modern day invention where you turn your kids over to some government schooling system that will teach them how to be employees, bad employees, right? never collaborate. You have to get the answer right. There's follow all the rules. That was never a way that human beings were thriving. And so I think for us, when we looked at our why and who we want to be, and I think, Tim, we had great examples in you guys. Like, we don't have chickens yet.
We will.
We aspire to have chickens. And I think that you're doing things that are even beyond what I want to do. But we love the idea of raising our kids in a manner consistent with our beliefs, our values, and teaching them how to grow businesses. And we give them a narrative that's different from the world's narrative, right? Our narrative is you go to school, you develop your passions and your skills. You find a wife, because we have boys. You find a wife, and then you either go to college or build your business with your wife, right? I said, go to Europe for a year, and you're going to go to Europe for a year. Take your wife with you. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that we felt it wasn't just like we should do this. It was like, I think we're being called to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So why doesn't it work for some people who are like, no, heck no, never, that would ruin our relationship? And I want to be careful, I guess, here what I ask, but is it why? Yeah. Let me just leave it at that. Why doesn't it work for some people? Is it a vision problem?
My suspicion is if they say that there's probably some communication issues already possibly happening that they're able to manage, just with the dynamics of their marriage as is, and they figured out some coping mechanisms and some ways to kind of work with it. But when you join someone in a business that you are so close with them, I mean, it's not like you get to kiss each other goodbye in the morning and then each go your separate ways and then come back. I mean, you're with each other a lot. So communication and that skill really needs to be on par.
And the way that it works for you in your marriage too, we work on our marriage. We've gone to the Love and Respect conference multiple times. We go to marriage retreats with churches or with friends or even on our own. Like we went through cancer. We're going through cancer again. And we take time to recharge. We went to the Albuquerque Balloon Festival, and it's like, we're not going to talk about work. And here's the thing, those times when we're just like, kind of like in love, holding hands, walking through a balloon festival, like that's when we talk about work. And it's such like this vibrant, passionate way that doesn't feel like work. And so we put a lot of effort into resilience, right? And it's like working long hours together. And by together, it could be, she has a studio in the next room and also above me. And so she can handle the kids.
That's my coping mechanism.
And so sometimes it's like right shoulder to shoulder. Other times it's like down the hall. I need a thing. And like, okay, I'll get your thing. We do our workshops like that. You're in the next room, but we'll work 4 to 6 hours together. And then, we do spend time apart. She'll go take Benny to his parkour class, and I'll go to the park and we recharge. It's resilience. And there's this back and forth, and there's this rhythmic nature to it. The sun rises, the sun sets. And these rhythms, I think, are what's important to understand and to develop in your marriage, but also in your business, right? Weekly meetings and a cadence, these things are healthy. But to answer your question in a real sort of like the truth is, I think a lot of people are very unhappy in their marriages. And I think that they're really just like trying to get through tomorrow with this big schlub who just plays video games all day, or with my wife who spends all my money all day. And I think a lot of people are unhappy in their marriages. And so the thought of working together is really like a painful thought. The other part of that is, you know, do you take nutrition advice from someone who has a body that's less attractive than yours? You know what I mean? Like, I look at those people and I go, well, I don't want what you have. Like, I want something bigger. I want something grander. And so we do things counterculture. We do things differently than what the culture might say.
And I would have a different opinion, but I think there's some similarity.
Like, you don't think people are unhappy in their marriages?
No, I mean, I'm sure there are, but I don't think that is why people don't start a business together. I think there's some, and I know some people that I've talked to who I know are very happy marriages, and the wife was like, I would never work with. But I think part of that also is, different passions, or what they have right now works well. And so they see the potential conflict that can happen, because it does take refining. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are as a couple, like, it does take work. And they're happy the way things are. Like, why put in that work for that when we're good the way we are? And so I think there is, again, it goes back to the why, right? If you have that vision for that real increased unity that can happen, it's like marriage 2.0.
It really is.
It really is when you join in a business together.
Yeah.
So if you want that, then you're willing to work for it.
Yeah, that's what I hear too, is people are like, well, this is already working for me and I don't want to screw it up. Like, I don't want to make it any different. And I can talk to my employees differently than I talk to my wife. I can have different expectations for them than I have for my wife. And it sounds like what you guys are saying is like, maybe you shouldn't, like, maybe you should be at a place where you could work together as peers rather than boss employee type of thing.
Yeah. That's so big. And I think that Theresa made me a better boss. Our turnover employee wise since she came on is like very, very low. We let people go. They don't leave us anymore. And that's, letting people go is kind of part of the deal. Like, you try someone out for a little, they didn't work out. But the people that work out, they stick around, and they often comment on how they love our dynamic. I've gone from treating my employee, or I hate to call them employees, like team members, right? Like, when we do our team calls, I'm softer, I'm more forgiving. My wife has taught me that women communicate differently at a core level, and how I can change my communication for the female members of my staff to inspire them, to encourage them, and to get their best work from them, which is, I think, something everybody wants. Similarly, I've learned how to maybe react slower and not take something as offense, right? Like, to me, it's always somebody did that on purpose to stumble us, to screw us. And it's like, how could you not do that intentionally? Of course it was done intentionally. They sat up and she's taught me that's like, maybe they've got something else going on in their life and they tripped over their own shoelaces, and you should be a sympathetic boss, And I'll tell you, my relationship with my team is tighter than it's ever been before. And I think that's because my wife can act as like the coolant to my overheating.
Well, because we have different personalities. And so I think oftentimes, you have your own personality. It's your personality you were born with, like you have your whole life. And I think it's common for us to just subconsciously assume that other people think the way we do. So it's not until I think you have some of these types of relationships where you're really working together, where you realize, wow, people think differently than me.
Just period.
And so because of that, like, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful in how you're interpreting what they're saying, how you're responding, because their brain just doesn't work that way. He's a very strategic person. And so he assumes that everybody else is as strategic as him. And so if they did that, there was a purpose and a reason for that. And my thought is, well, I'm actually oftentimes I'm kind of thoughtless. I just,
felt like it.
And I think some people are thoughtless too. Like they didn't do it on purpose. They
felt like it.
They just did this thing and they had no idea that it would be so offensive or
or that even it could be offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dana, what would you say to someone who's like, you shouldn't work with your bot or you shouldn't work with your spouse?
Well, I'm kind of thinking, because y'all are 5 years into this. We're 1 year into this. And so I'm kind of curious as to...
Well, on video creators. We've worked together on other things. But
well, yeah, we've done our family vlog channel together. But this is like first time like actually running a business together, which has been way different. I have enjoyed that we get to... I feel like we talk more.
Yes.
Because there's a bigger common thread now, being able to have an input into the business and what's going on and everything, and have an opinion about it. Before we just were kind of passing ways.
And there's like that missing common ground. Like you're talking about diapers and he's like, yeah, but I got this huge brand that's like really stressing me out. And like, you don't get it. You're like, well, just tell them this. And you can't tell them that, and there's like this.
Right.
Because you don't know the background and you don't know all the intricacies. Yeah,
we live in like two different worlds kind of, and they don't really intersect except for once a month when we do the budget.
Totally.
Right. But even then, like I would get started on the budget first and then you would come in when it's almost done and be like, okay, sure. And so there wasn't a lot of overlap between us really, which is interesting, being married to not have a whole lot of overlap. But that's probably the bigged benefit of working together that I've really enjoyed.
I 100% agree. I really love unity.
Yeah. The downside to that though, and I'd like to hear what your responses to this is that a common pushback is like, yeah, but then all your conversations end up being about work and you lose like the spark and it's kind of like you go out on date night and then we just talk about work and kids and stuff and not really about us and our relationship and things. So,
but a big thing for you, especially in the beginning, Tim would tell me like, he actually feels like I care about what he does now.
Yeah. I feel like she understands me better,
Yeah.
It's not really about like, we only talk about work. It's like, that's because I spend so much time thinking about this. And now finally the person that I love the most and entrust most of my life with actually gets it. And now I can have like a meaningful conversation about this thing,
This is the way that marriage was supposed to be. And this is the way a marriage was until the Industrial Revolution. And that's what I'm saying is like, let's get back to that. For those of you guys listening that you guys don't know my story, I am beating cancer with 100% alternative treatment. Okay. I'm healthier than I've ever been. Still have a couple tumors, or one really, and that'll go away in time. My point is that a return to classical and traditional thinking and going opposite of this hyper, revolutionized, hyper technologicalized, society, like is where I have found true joy. And with joy comes healing and comes like this great relationship I have with my kids. I was just thinking, as we were talking about something earlier today, like the moments where I feel so full of joy and like so just in love is when she'll say to me something like, I was just thinking about the Ligari channel. And I'm like, me too. She's like, I was thinking we could do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then we could do that. And we actually are building, this dream together. And so you hear about like all of our conversations are about this and that. Let's deconstruct that. What you're saying is all of your conversations connect. Mm-hmm. It's never like, oh, I did this thing that you don't relate to, and then tell me about something that I don't relate to. Everything you talk about.
Because before it's like, well, my day was this hard because I was doing all of this. Well, my day was this hard because I was doing all of this, and trying to compete for who's going to show the most empathy to the other person.
Totally.
And who's
washing the dishes
who
tonight?
makes dishes?
I deserve not to have to wash the dishes.
100%.
You put the kids to bed tonight because I'm more worn out than you are. And
yes.
Everybody loses at that point.
That's why I think people stay away from these kinds of relationships. And we weren't ready for it right at first. We had to really like dial our marriage in the way that we communicate in. But now I feel like we're more vibrant than we have been before.
Yeah. And I think, some of it is, again, continuing to work on relationships takes work, communication takes work. And so speaking to what you were saying about, getting possibly stuck in these conversations where you feel like you're always talking about work I think it goes back to, well, what gives you life? If talking about work is exciting and fun for you and you feel really aligned, then what's the problem with it? Like, who cares what the rules say? But if it's not, and there's times with him, and I'm learning as well, we're both working on how to respectfully but clearly be able to have like boundaries. So I might start talking about work after dinner.
Just last night.
And Owen will be very clear, hey, I don't want to talk about work right now. And oh, okay, great. And I can just change that subject. And then also just making some simple rules up. Like if we're going to go out to dinner and that is not something that is giving us life right now, and we really need to unplug from that, and we're going to go out to eat and we're going to have a date so that we can just focus on us and maybe just separate ourselves a little bit from some of the other stresses going on in life, then that conversation looks like, okay, we're going to go do this and we're not going to talk about work. We're going to talk about all the other stuff. We're going to dream. We're going to talk about our future, whatever. And you just set those boundaries up and just make sure that it's clear between both of you and it's working for both of you.
You might drop a line, or I might be like, she might be like, hey, are you in your head about work? And I'm like, you're right, I am. Let's pull out of it, right? Like, it's never perfect, but we hold each other accountable to it, because we enjoy the process and we want to be resilient, right? Resilience is all about like jumping into the fire, jumping out of the fire, jumping into the fire and jumping out of the fire. Most, I think, people are stuck in that hustle culture. They're in the fire all the time. And they're like, would you like to be in the fire with that person you argue with every day? And it's like, no, for the love of all that's holy, I don't want to be in that fire with that person. You know what I mean?
Take a break.
Right.
Well, and I think too, there's sometimes this dynamic when you're at work, and I don't think anyone would call it this, but I think it kind of functions like this, where especially if you're in a leadership position in the business, other people are following you and what you say goes, and you are making decisions for people and they are coming to you seeking advice. It's this very kind of like, I'm important and needed here type of thing. But when the guy goes back to the home, it's like the woman's domain. And it's like, I don't feel needed here. I don't feel like my word has any impact or influence. It's the mother who is like playing that role in the home. And it becomes this place where a dad is like, I would rather be at work because I feel more significant there. Right.
Yeah.
And so what this does is it forces the husband and the wife to be like, no, like we can link arms around this rather than this being my domain versus your domain.
Yes.
And the guy's heart is captured by his work rather than by his family, where the family can do this together. The husband and the wife can, and it forces you to be like, for the guy to embrace some humility, right? And for the wife to learn how to respectfully communicate as well. Because they're usually right, but it just feels different when it's coming from your wife than it does from, a boss or, a superior or not an inferior. What would you call them? A teammate or
an
something.
Underling. What were you saying? Inferior? An underling. Yeah, shrewd.
But because our hearts are captured by that dynamic, and when we work with our spouse, that dynamic in large part can't be there in order for it to still be a healthy relationship. I think it turns into a healthier relationship, but you don't get the ego stroking type of I'm important type of thing as much as you do. Is like, because, and I'll be honest here, like I'm not detail oriented. I haven't even looked at how things get coded in QuickBooks in 9 years of doing this business.
Yeah,
right? Not once. And it hasn't even crossed my mind like that should be something I should do. So yes, I know it's not a good thing, but it's the truth. And so when Dana comes along, she is like literally like rubbing her face with her hands and like sighing and leaning back in her chair, and she's gotten mad at me for how could you be this way in the business? And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's kind of like, but my skill is what got us here. So the problem's a good problem. But so we have those tensions, those moments where it's like, that's why I need you. But it's not the, whatever the boss says goes and I get to tell people what to do, type of thing.
No, we're collaborators. I think one of the biggest changes and I was thinking about this in preparation for our time today, was that I grew up with the home is the woman's domain. Now, my mom was not that person. She's not a nurturer in any way, shape, or form. So we were kind of left to this unnurturing woman by my dad, who largely was kind of like that come home and no eye contact kind of dad. Now, my dad today is one of my best friends, and so I want to absolve him of that. But I went into this marriage in a sense of like the husband rules the home. And I have come to view my wife as an equal. I have come to view my wife as someone who I respect and like look up to. I do. She's made more sales for this company than I ever did. And I see the way the other industry leaders look up to you and love you. Mm-hmm. And helping me to beat cancer, raising all my kids, and never once was divorce, never once was separation, never once did she complain about herself not being fed during that whole process. And that you can't help but be changed, like I believe in Jesus. I got changed 12 years ago, but I got changed again when these just small moments, right, where it's like I'm in awe over who this woman is that I get to sit next to, and I see these other influencer women, and I'm like they can't hold a candle. Like I want to see my wife step into who she is, and I do the dishes now. Like it sounds so lame, right? It sounds so 1950s.
Glorious.
But I got married. I'm not going to do the dishes. You don't do the dishes the right way. You guys make a mess. You use plastic plates. That has just way fallen off. And now it's like, okay, you're on the phone with clients. I'll go take the kids to the thing today. And then I need you to go get a massage because you need to unwind. I'll go into the garden with the kids. And like it's a divvying up, and it's sometimes she makes dinner and does the food. Other times I do. We look at our week, we plan it out.
Whichever one's the best.
And I did not enter our marriage that way. I entered our marriage in a very different mindset.
How old are your kids, your boys?
We have a 15-year-old. Owen's a stepdad to a 15-year-old. And then we have almost 11, a 9-year-old. And then our baby girl is 7. So we got 3 boys. And then our youngest is a girl.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
The way we've been doing that, Owen, is our I take the breakfast stuff in the morning. So Dana gets up and she comes straight out here to our office and starts working even before the kids are out of bed.
Yeah. I prefer that. I prefer the morning to thing.
Yeah.
And so I get up with the kids and get them dressed, this morning I made French toast because we have the chickens are laying like crazy right now. So we're like, we're going to use all these eggs. We're tired of scrambled eggs. All right, French toast it is, so scrambled eggs and bread. But, and so, yeah, so we get, I do that, probably for the first hour and a half or something in the morning. And then, so I've kind of taken over you might call the traditional role of the mother in the morning. But it's been good. It's worked really well for us. Yeah. And then we have our kids actually make almost all the meals, for our family.
That's a goal. We definitely have that as a goal.
I think we're working towards that. Like they can make their own individual meals now. Like we're I think similar to you in that we really believe in self-sufficiency. And so as I try to cook with the kids when I cook. Like if I'm going to make food, I'm going to make food with the kids, and it's something that I'm going to kind of instruct them in doing. And while they're doing that, I'm really filling their heads with like, you're going to be married someday. You might even have roommates someday. You need to know how to clean up. We build their identity while we're doing these things, but we work in rhythms. We have schedules and routines, but we're flexible, right? If I got to pick up something and we got to change it this week, whatever. And you've been really good with your calendar. I love the calendar thing that she does on Sundays.
Yeah, we actually just started this. I think the guy's name was, remember the guy who did the I believe in Jesus but not religion
Jefferson Bethke
video that went viral? So he came out with a family calendar. Do you guys have it too? Or
well,
do you guys
no, but his business partner shoots all their family teams video right here in my studio.
Oh, love it. What a small world. I love it.
Yeah.
So I bought their family calendar, and it's been so amazing for our whole family to just get on the same page.
Yeah.
So, we have our own individual calendars, but we have like a family calendar, and he has different things on there, like, you get to plan out your weeks. Everybody knows, like, the stuff that's family related. We know that Scotland has her cheer practice on Wednesday, all those types of things. But then you have, like, you put down your family's prayer requests, what your family's gracious for. You put the meal plan for the week, the grocery list, or what, rewards for the week. What are you going to do on the weekend to restore? And then what we do is every Sunday before the week starts, I plan out the calendar, and then we have like a family meeting, and we go over the week. This is the week. And then I also gather their information. What's your prayer request this week? What's your praise report for this week that we can all just celebrate with, And it's a really great weekly meeting, and then gets us all on the same page for that week. There's no surprises, the kids really, I think, enjoy the stability that comes from that.
Yeah,
too.
I think that was an extension of our business. What we learned in business was cadence, right? We're really big on cadence. I believe that God wants us to enter into rhythms that are natural, that are in tune with his creation and with each other. That's why worship and like corporate church is so important. It's like you're in rhythm with people, and it was working for the business. And so we started working it at home, and just as like in our business, we want our team to do their best work while they're here.
Our family's a team too.
We want our family to do their best work during these years, and so applying those business principles to the family has made us a closer family, and it's helped us to teach business principles to the kids, which is part of our value system too.
Well, let's wrap with this. Owen, you kind of already did it, and you told Theresa kind of what working together in the business, how that's impacted your perception of her to you, and how you see her differently now, how it's impacted how you connect with her. I'd like to hear from you, Theresa, and then Dana and I will go about how's working with Owen in the business, Theresa. How has that dynamic changed how you perceive him as a man and in your marriage and your relationship? Yeah. What comes to mind for you there when you think about the impact that working together has had on that for you guys?
Well, I would say the big thing is because he's such a visionary, and I'm not naturally that way. I had mentioned before that I came from a background of high school English teacher, and there's a lot of love that I have for that. I love teaching and all of that. But one of the downsides that, for me, I would say, just my own personal growth, was that it kept me in this kind of employee type of mindset. And it was like, not a lot of like big goals or big dreams that you could achieve, because you kind of were stuck with what you have, and everything's kind of based on if you want this, you got to save for that. That's how I just viewed everything. So I was very grounded, as some might see. But what he's helped me really do is step out of that and think bigger, and think, in ways, if we want this, not how do we necessarily save for that, but what can we create? What can we do to make the money to be able to have that? And it's just a whole different way of even thinking. I've also seen him, because I know the business now, and I know the people he's talking to, and who his colleagues are, and just all of that. I've been able to see him, I guess, a more vulnerable side, I could say, to the face of Owen Video. This, who on the internet side, there's a front-facing side to who he is that people that we encounter on social media and so forth can see. And there's a face that you do for your brand and so forth. But there's also things that are, that are more private, right? But I'm also able to see, I think, that vulnerable side of him, of just what happens in the mindset of a man who is doing all of this and making these changes in people's lives, but also like has dreams, and things sometimes don't go well, and all of that. And I think that it's given me more compassion for him and his role as the spiritual leader of our home, the face of our company, and his role, I think, even in the world and what he's doing. So I think I have more respect for him, as well as more compassion and love for him as well. Hopefully that makes sense. That I tied it all up there.
Okay.
Well, I think for me, the word that comes to mind for me, having worked together with you, Dana, for the past year in the business, we worked together in other ways, but more intentionally now in the business for the past year, is I just don't feel so alone. I feel like we've linked arms better. And I see you. I was like, wow, she has so much value to contribute, to give to the world. And I'm glad that it's not just, it's going to sound bad. I don't mean it this way, but it's kind of just like stuck inside the home, you know, like it's able to get outside the home. I know the home is a very powerful tool for doing ministry. I'm not trying to belittle any of that, but seeing how it impacts other people on our team and our own family economics and things, I just have a lot more. One, I don't feel as alone, but because of that, it's allowed me to see you work in a different context. That's I have a lot more respect. Is the best word that comes to mind for me of like of what you're able to do, what you do, and your insights and your opinions. When I ask you things, like, you know, usually give me good feedback. We once had an opportunity in our business. There's a quick little story here just to kind of highlight Dana. And we had this opportunity, and I was like, let's do this. This is great. And Dana was like, well, hold on. I just have one question. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, is this going to take you away from our family more?
Wow.
And I was like, probably, you know? Wow. And she's like, well, more money doesn't change our life, but not having you around does. And I was like,
wow,
you're not wrong, you know?
Brutal.
And so we didn't take that opportunity, you know?
That's amazing.
And not that it would have been terrible for our family if we did, but it was just those types of wisdom and insights that without you being a part, I probably would have blindly just gone ahead because I was excited about it and didn't really stop to think, which is what you helped me do. Right?
Yeah. I love that, because what I think that you guys are really showing is, you know, when you're working together, your spouse, you know, more than anybody else that you might, you know, partner with, that person is on your side. They know that you have the same vision for your life. And so any decisions that you make in the business, you know, their input is going to be based on that, you know, and so that's something that you can trust versus anybody else that might have underlying motives and so forth, right?
She told me, I remember when Theresa told me that you're not going to get any more CT scans. And she goes, those things, she says, CT scans are full of radiation and the hospital doesn't care because they don't think you're going to live for 20 years. And she's like, my man is not going to die in 20 years because we got too many CT scans today. We're going to get MRIs, we're going to pay for them ourselves, and you are going to live. You know, and I remember that because, look, when you get some scary diagnosis, like you're not exactly sure what to do. But she came in like a lightning bolt and was like, this is what we're doing.
I said it a lot nicer.
No, it wasn't that aggressive. You know, I wanted to play the Rocky music in the background.
Yeah. All right, your turn. And we'll let them go here.
I would say the biggest thing that I've really enjoyed is just seeing how much grace that Tim has for people. I've really struggled having grace for people for most of my life, and getting to have a front row seat of seeing how many chances he will give to people on the team. We've had, especially in the beginning of him starting to run a business and learning who he needed to come and partner with him. He had a lot of grace and gave lots of opportunities when I'm like, I would just give up now. Like, you need to find somebody else. And he is just so willing to continue to work through and talk through things and come to better solutions with people instead of just writing them off. And then the other part of that grace would be customer service. I have a very high expectation for customer service now, just because of how much I see how good he is at taking care of our customers. And to the point when I first started working the business, I'm like, why? Like, why are you giving somebody a refund for blah, 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 or whatever? And I'm like,
totally. That's our money.
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And he's like, just do it. And I'm like, but now I'm like, oh man, I so appreciate it. And my expectations, if I get poor customer service from another company, I'm like, that's it. Like, I'm done working with you. Like, this is.
Oh, for sure.
So.
Yeah. And the not firing people thing, I think is coming from a point, just to clarify, is like, it's coming from a place of what is the goal of the business? And the goal in my opinion, the goal of our business is it needs to be profitable, but the goal is not necessarily to make as much money as we can as efficiently as possible. The goal of the business is to reach people and change lives, starting with our lives, but it could also be the lives of people on our team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And if there's if I'm still have some Pastor Shepherd giftedness in me, it's more of a like, maybe like, yes, we're going to lose money on you, and this might not ever get turned around. Maybe it means you're in the wrong seat in the bus, to borrow Jim Collins' analogy. But maybe it's also like this is a good opportunity for us to support you as you grow and mature in this area of your life as well, rather than you're here to perform a role, and if you can't perform it, see ya.
And that's created an amazing team. Like the team that we have here at Video Creators is amazing, and I'm
watched you guys
impressed.
I've watched it develop over the years. I've seen the people that you've worked with and come through with. And, we recently had a rather large client that was not falling into our values at all. And I really wanted to let them go. And this is like a big refund. And it's like, I came to her with this, like, I really want to let go of this client. I feel like they are not a fit for us. We learned it the hard way. And for her to look at me and go, I totally agree. I'll process the refund today. Like, imagine the burden of wondering, what's my wife going to say? Or like, I need to keep this awful client because I got to pay the bills. We need the
money or whatever.
Yeah, like being able to make these decisions together and to like do this together it lifted the whole team up. When we told them that we were letting go of this client, everybody on the team was just like, thank goodness. We didn't feel like these were a good fit. Like I didn't feel right doing their work and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't about like their product or service. It's about the way that they do their product. It's a little slimy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but I love what you guys said, about, that it's about transforming your life first and then the lives of others and then including your team. And I think, we work with a lot of people that have great influence, right, in the world, and they want bigger influence. They have a message, right? But I think how they treat their clients or their customers or their audience is one way of seeing like how influential they really are. But I think a bigger testimony to that is how they treat their team members.
Yeah.
That I think is a real good testimony to what kind of impact they really are making, how they really are inspiring and changing lives. So we're excited to continue working on that and looking up to people like you and who have businesses that have been going a little longer than ours and are.
So that's a good example.
Yeah, a really great example. So thank you for sharing that with us.
If you want to learn more about the Hemsaths and their family, there's some links in the show notes here where you can go check out their family's TikTok, their family's Instagram. They're just, as a family, making fun little videos and skits together. Him, Theresa, their kids, all of them together, working on this family project as a team, just having fun. On TikTok, I'm looking at their account now. They have almost 10 million views there, so not too shabby in what they're doing. So yeah, go check them out if you want to see a little bit more behind the scenes of what their family looks like. And if you have any questions or follow-ups or responses to today's conversation, I would love to hear them. There's a link in the show notes where you can click and leave me a voice message. Also, just go to businessfamilymarriage.com and leave a voice message there. And I'd love to feature some of those questions in an upcoming episode and just answer them and respond to them and help you guys move forward with maybe some of the stuff in your own life, your own marriage, your own business. So thank you guys for being a part of this small but growing community. And I will see you guys again in the next episode sometime soon. See you then.